Brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. It's hour number 2. And I want you to welcome back to the program one of the brightest conservative minds in the entire state of Arkansas, Mr. Richard Castor, is back with us. Richard, thank you so much for being with us, sir.
Thank you, Paul. You're too kind. I don't think we can back that statement up, but we'll sure try.
Well, I absolutely think it's backed up. And I've talked to a lot of people. What's interesting is, you know who you need to meet? Because you're the chairman of the Baxter County Republicans. You need to meet Erin Hogan. She's the new chairman of the Republican. She's the new chairman of the Randolph County Republicans. And she's like 23 years old. I did a conservative future segment with her, I think, on Thursday. And so I don't know. It's nice to see so many young conservatives out there.
No, absolutely. And I was listening to your program before I came on, and you hit the nail on the head. You know, the party structure that we have in Arkansas is really reliant on the county committees. And for people listening, they don't know. You know, we talk about the RNC, the Republican National Committee. Well, that's actually built up of all these little county committees all across America. And people can get involved and have a really sound impact on things like we're talking about, a liberal Arkansas governor. You know, it starts right at home every single time in this fight for liberty that we're in. And so it's great that we have, you know, other young people getting involved, but we need everybody. We need people, you know, from my age to the age of 99 and a half involved in their local county committees fighting for the conservative cause. Because when we call, as Baxter County, when we call down to Little Rock and we say, hey, we're the Baxter County Republican Committee, we have this many members, we raise this much money for the party, they listen. You know, that's the bottom line. Influence, money, power, that's how you get things done in these circles. And so having these powerful committees is a really important tool for conservatism in the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, and you know, if there are some committees where there, you know, maybe some liberalism, progressivism that has hold, maybe more establishment, you know, when there is this influx of new you know, talent or whatever we want to call it, you know, be prepared for some pushback. I mean, this has happened, you know, I can cite you. Washington County is certainly one of them where the establishment has tried to weaken the principles of it, and it's been fought, you know, and the establishment folks, of course, a lot of it had to do with John Woods, and, you know, because they were all John Woods supporters, and, you know, he's been indicted. So it kind of, you know, or at least it should put a damper on some of their arguments or points of view, in my opinion. But, you know, we got to be prepared for the pushback because it is a battle of ideas.
Oh, absolutely. And we got to be knowledgeable about it, right? We got to show up ready and willing to make our argument at every level. We talked about, you know, here in Baxter County, we're starting to see the slow and, you know, slow growth of government. And it always starts as a little trickle, right? It always starts with somebody who has a pretty good idea. And here in Baxter County, we have our planning board is wanting to regulate the county and make it to where you have to get approved if you want to build a new subdivision. If you're a builder right now, you can buy a piece of property in Baxter County and build on it, and you're good, and you can sell the things if they pass inspections, and, you know, somebody will buy them, and the market decides if the house is good enough or not for the person to buy it. Well, now we have our planning board saying, well, that's not safe enough. We have to have the government come in and protect our people. And so we're going to have an inspector that works for the county to go in and decide whether or not these people can build these buildings, whether or not these people can sell these buildings. And this is the fight we're in because the majority of people on this planning board are great Republicans. Are Republicans I know and love. They're my friends. They're my family, right? But to me, they have the wrong idea. And it really boils down to, there was a quote in the Baxter Bulletin about this. One of the guys, one of the JPs, Mr. Chapman, who said, the people aren't seeking this protection, and they don't want this protection from the government. And I thought that was so well put, right? We don't want the government to do these things. We don't want the government to grow. We want to be able to thrive. I want to be able to build something on my piece of property that I saved up for years in northern Baxter County to buy.
Yeah.
And I want to build on it, and I don't have to worry about all this paperwork, the government growing, and some bureaucrat to come in and tell me I didn't do it just right. And so we have to watch at all levels of government. We have to watch and fight and make sure that the cause for liberty is winning.
I so agree with you, and you've certainly highlighted how these little lessons can be taught at the county level and then applied, you would think, to the state reps, to the state senators, that they would try to bring that grassroots, not top down, but bottom up change, and I think that's what we need in Arkansas. We're talking with Richard Castor. He is the host of The View from Hillsdale with Richard Castor. He's a Hillsdale College graduate. You can hear it on Mountain Talk 97. Is it on Saturdays, Richard?
Yes, sir. Saturdays at 8 a.m.
So I'm glad you brought this up. Where I'm from, in my neck of the woods, I live in Craighead County, so the northeast part of the state, and the city of Jonesboro now, the mayor here, is started to propose fee increases. Talk about a growth in government, right? To me, there's no more growth in government than when we're giving the government more money. I mean, that allows it to grow even more. He's trying to get the city water and light provider to, tack on a fee. And I off the top of my head, I've just glanced at some of these articles, $5 a month or something crazy. And I mean, it's absolutely crazy to, because we've got to have the money. On top of that, they're proposing increasing the license that you have to have, or the fee you have to have if you cut other people's yards. So if you make money, if you take money, and I didn't even know there's a license now. If you're under 18, it doesn't apply to you. So you can cut grass for money. But it's just incredible to me that this is where we are. And so we are fighting these things. I mean, in my neck of the woods, we had the International Property Maintenance Code that was passed, and then there was a special election to repeal it, and that was going to require, the city they were going to have all this new authority, anti-Fourth Amendment, and, if you're all to try to protect your home values, and it had things like, do you have rat guards on your basement windows? If you got to protect, from rodents getting in, and it's like, hey, like you said, nobody, especially the majority, is not asking for this. We're not asking for the government to do this, and yet it's the people in government that seem to want to, to try to protect us from ourselves, I guess.
Right. And, I always like to give a little historical context when we talk about things like this. And the Founding Fathers told us this was going to happen. And I would suggest everyone go home and Google the Federalist Papers and Federalist 51, which I'm sure you know very well, Paul. There's a phrase in there that the founders, when they were writing that document and explaining how they wanted to construct our form of government, they said we needed ambition to counteract ambition. And it's also where we get that beautiful quote, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government, right? And they're saying in there, we have to have ambition as a people to secure our liberty, because a government naturally is going to be ambitious, and it's always going to want to grow. And so they said, bring the power close to the people so you can really affect change and you can really constrain the government and not allow it to grow, because it's an ambitious beast, they said, right, that it will just keep growing and eating things alive. And so we have to have our side. We're just now getting it, I feel like, in Arkansas, where the ball is starting to roll to our corner, where we're having this ambition to fight the government, to really start swinging the pendulum to the other direction and start lowering, the size and scope of government. We finally have the Paul Harrell program in Baxter County, which is so great. And we have these resources, right, across the state where we can affect change. And we saw in this past legislative session how important it is that that change starts to happen, because that was an abysmal failure, what happened down there in this past session. I'm sure we can, we can cherry pick a few things and say they were okay. But all in all, we have a liberal governor who's forwarding a liberal agenda with an R next to his name, and somehow that's supposed to make it okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it okay.
I'm really glad to hear you say that. And again, folks, as a county chairman, he's saying that. And you heard Erin Hogan say things, how disappointed she was, and she's the Randolph County chairman for the Republicans. And so, there is this, again, it seems to be a boil, and I think something could be coming down the pike. And, you mentioned the state. I mean, let's just talk about the growth of government. And I don't think there's any worse accomplishment than the tire tax. They decided to increase the current tax on tires, and then they created a new tax on tires, and it's all the differentiation of whether or not you take a tire on or put a tire off. They call it a rim fee, and and it was all to try to save us from no joke, the Zika virus, because mosquitoes can breed in standing water and tires can retain the water. And so again, they were protecting us, and I don't know of anybody whose major issue when they voted for Republicans was, you've got to protect us from the standing water in tires. Richard.
Oh, yeah. I was reading this bill today, and the way I read it, you have a brand new tax that's $1 if I go to the tire store. Even if I bring my own used tire and I say, hey, could you put this on my car for me? They're going to tax me an extra $1. If that's not double taxation, because there's already been tax paid on that tire, then I don't know what is. I don't know how this bill got passed. I don't know how you can use the justification of the Zika virus, which is, I'm sorry, a few news cycles ago. I don't know if anybody's turned on CNN anymore. It's been contained. So it's any excuse, right? It's that ambitious government. Any excuse they can get to protect the citizens because the government loves us. But logically follow that through. If it's the government's job to protect us in our day-to-day lives, I'm not talking about from Iran or Syria or from ISIS. I'm talking about from the ceiling fan falling down on top of me. If it's the government's job to protect us, then what's a father's job anymore? What's a man's job at the household? What's the mother's job now? The government starts taking place in the family sphere, and it completely changes our culture. We start relying on the government for everything, from every aspect of our lives, to the point where when you remember the health care bill, Obamacare, when it went to the Supreme Court, and the great late Justice Scalia said, what, is the government able to force me to eat a piece of broccoli now? And you can read the transcript. He asked the government that question because if you logically follow through these liberal policies, the end conclusion is a complete nanny state. It's a state that takes care of us at every turn, and it's a state where we no longer have freedom and liberty because, we've gotten such a far away from what the founders expected us to be and expected our governments to be.
It is such a slippery slope, and I'm pulling this story right now because I had it. We're going to talk about it later, and we still will. But the Associated Press reports that China has a toilet crisis. Actually, it's more of a toilet paper crisis. The government came in talking about providing your every need, and they decided to really help the people out, the tourism industry out in China, because people are just dying to get there. And the bathrooms, the restrooms there were gross, so they put really nice toilets in. And then a new problem arose because anytime the government tries to do something, there's always another problem or unintended consequence. And that was the people are basically so poor there, they started stealing the toilet paper from these new nice restrooms. And so the China's response is that they are now using facial recognition software, a new technology, combined with another technology, Richard, that only dispenses 1 2-foot section of paper every 9 minutes after a face scan. So after they scan your face, presumably while you're on the toilet, I'm assuming. And people are going to say this is crazy, but I just have a feeling that if this was mandated by the federal government and they gave Arkansas a whole bunch of money, Asa, Charlie Collins, and the rest of them would probably implement it the way they did Obamacare.
Oh no, you're probably right. I'm a little bit speechless after that one, but it's true. The absurdity of government knows no bounds. You were playing clips from Ronald Reagan on your Facebook live feed of the show, which everyone should watch. It's a ton of fun. And Reagan was talking about the Soviet Union, and he was talking about how it took him 10 years to get a new car. If you walked in to buy a car, it would take 10 years for you to get it. Do you know how long it takes, Paul, do you know this, in America, to certify a new drug in the FDA?
I do not, but I bet it's
10 years.
Oh, wow.
It's 10 years. The same amount of time it took the Soviet Union to bring you a car is how long it takes the federal government to get you a new drug. And so we have people dying every day in America where the drugs, the miracle drug that we all pray for our family member, has already been invented. But you have to wait another 10 years to get through the red tape for that drug to be approved instead of letting the market handle it, instead of letting a third party handle approving these things. And it's the absurdity of government. 10 years ago, I could have told you that, and we would think it's as absurd as a toilet, scanning your face, right? But it's spitting out 9 pieces of toilet paper every hour or whatever. But this is the reality we live in now. Nothing's too absurd for the government. Yeah. It wants to grow, and it wants to take over our lives, and we have to fight it every step of the way. And we can do it, and we can win, and there's a lot of hope and a lot of opportunity out there.
Richard Castor, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the program, as always, and we'll do it again soon.
Thank you, Paul.
All righty, folks. The Liberty Machine will be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.